Hi everyone, my name is Tshiamiso Makwela. At Doctor of Moon is my handle on Instagram and on Twitter. I was invited by Ntiki from Siakula Digital to be part of a video live on science communication September and to speak about the importance of science communication and of science and education thereof. So she prepared a few questions for me, and that is what I'll be answering during this thing. And apologies for not having this video live, but I encourage you to watch this and still send questions through that I can be able to reply to. So remember that, each and everything that I'll be sharing here today is actually from my own perspective and my lived experiences. And, experiences are not necessarily the same for everyone. There are some experiences that might be the same and some that are totally different. And I encourage you to take what you can take and implement it and use it in your lives. So getting into the questions, the first question is, so to start off this thing, I'll definitely be honest in saying that there is no straight answer to this question. The how and the why is there, but the how is actually, it has been waves and waves and waves. So from a very young age, I was about 4, 5, as my mom sometimes tell me all of these things, as I've just been intrigued by the stars. And I said to my mom, well, one day I really want to go to the stars and see what's happening there. And my mom was just like, people don't do that. How do you even just want to go to the stars? I mean, really now. So I had this full-on interest in stars, but I was mostly intrigued by the moon. The moon had different shapes. It changed every single month, and there was just these many other aspects of the moon that I really loved seeing. And my mom and I, from that time, we started being what I call amateur astronomers, because we were able to pick out, to say, okay, that star is always out there. So when that star is out there, now this is happening, or, this is winter now, or things like that. And so, as that was kind of my thing from a very young age, when I got to high school, and I had already had this notion of astronomy and astronomers and astronauts, especially with Mark Shuttleworth going to space. So of course that seemed like something that people do. But at the same time, it seemed like a hobby, like, to be honest, not knowing a lot of astronomers makes this astronomy thing seems like they're either like, can you really work as an astronomer? Can you really find a job as an astronomer? So these are things that keep on creeping on it. And that, like, around grade 10 or so, you are made to be making big life choices. And I know most of us have went through this, that when we get to grade 10, we are choosing subjects that we will go further on in life with, but we're also trying to choose these subjects in line with the kind of career that we want to find ourselves in. And so because, astronomy was a thing for me, I went for sciences. And just going to the sciences, so many other form of science, came to mind. Engineering was one of them. And, it was such an interesting and hot topic. So at that point, I knew I wanted to do astronomy, but there was this whole engineering thing that was also kind of exciting for me. And with more research into all these fields, I mean, astronomy still stood out for me, but it was important for me to find and to be in a career that will secure a job for me. So job security was also something that was part of me, and at the back of my mind, I need to make sure that I pick a career that will ensure that I have a job. So, when you're applying for a Bachelor of Science degree, they don't tell you this, that, what are you going to do with the degree afterwards? It's just a general BSc degree that you get. And for me, when I was thinking of things like that, they were always like a stepping stone towards doing astronomy, a stepping stone towards doing astronomy. But, at the same time, you know, you go to school, you study, you get a degree, and then you need to move on. And moving on means getting a job. So what do you do with that afterwards? And at that time, you know, options were very narrow. And that's when I got into education for me. And as much as I got into education for job security, there was also the interest and, you know, developed from there. As I was in education, that's when I also developed kind of an interest in what's happening in the education system, an interest in learning, an interest in understanding and conceptual understanding, and a bigger interest in ensuring that knowledge does not stay in one place. You know, knowledge moves from one place to another, and knowledge is shared amongst people. And then, you know, with that love of now astronomy and with this new interest of education, my passion grew together into astronomy education. And that's what I find myself in right now. I find myself in a space of astronomy and education research, not just education. Can I just also clarify that I am, you know, I'm in education research mostly, where I am looking at understanding rather than just teaching, but I'm looking at understanding how we can help students, you know, at varsity, at primary school, at high school, understand things better. I'm looking at what is it that in their understanding, you know, that we can use in order to ensure that they are able to understand things better. So that's where I kind of am right now. And I mean, just like with everything, you know, you make things work for you. And so that's what I did with astronomy and with education. I put them together and to research things and issues that are important to me. In most of the cases, and I've also mentioned this, you know, in my posts, that stars are part of our heritage, you know, stars are part of our lives. We speak of astronomy and we think it's a Western science, and we don't think about how astronomy has influenced our lives as Africans. You know, if we go back to, you know, to our own cultural knowledge and to our elders, and you ask them about stars, they have stories to tell you about stars. And to be honest, those stories hold true to science today and to astronomy today. For example, you know, they have Ditudra, you know, Ditudra is the name of two stars that are out at night. And, you know, Tudra is a giraffe in Setswana. And if I'm not mistaken, I mean, I can be corrected. So every single time those stars are out, you know, our indigenous people would know that now this is the time, or this is the season to do 1, 2, 3. So way before knowing summer, autumn, winter, spring, our own Africans and our own heritage, our own cultures rather, we already had a communication with the stars, or we rather communicated with the stars, or the stars communicated with us. I mean, that's even better. The stars communicated with us at that point, and we were able to do things when we looked at the stars. And so I think, you know, it's important to not only view astronomy as a Western science, but as a science that has had an influence in our everyday lives, and hence it is important in Africa. And one of the many important and amazing things about that is the fact that Africa is in the Southern Hemisphere. And in the Southern Hemisphere, we have the best view of the sky. So the best view of the sky that we can ever have in the whole globe is in the Southern Hemisphere. You know, we can see the Milky Way. And so imagine us having that, you know, we have that at our capacity, and now we can use it to make more discoveries for the whole world. So it's important that, you know, we as Africans are part of those discoveries, because we have the luxury of that south sky, the southern sky, I mean. So it's really important. I mean, stars are heritage, you know, our heritage really does lie in the stars. And I think one of the important things for me is it would be great to see us as Africans identifying, with this science as part of our heritage. I mean, I can mention a few. So I think South Africa, I'm just going to say South Africa at this point. South Africa has taken astronomy as one of their flagship sciences, meaning one of their great sciences to invest in and, to use as a science that takes the country forward. And in South Africa, we have seen with the SAO, which is the South African Astronomical Observatory, and having SALT, we've seen with the Meerkat, and now recently with the development of the Square Kilometer Array, the SKA. Literally, the SKA is going to be bringing, the kind of science contributions that no other part of the world has seen. So it is coming up with, being able to look at the stars across, different frequencies, multi-wavelength astronomy is here in South Africa, where we are able to see beyond, the optical telescopes, for example, that we've had. And recently, I mean, this is very recent, that using these technologies and using these telescopes that we have in South Africa, amazing data has been found, and South African researchers and researchers working in South Africa have made, have been part of these discoveries. I mean, earlier in the year, there was such a huge hype, and even in the media, about the 2 galaxies that were found in a region of the sky, using the Meerkat and using, our own telescopes that are here. So I think we are really moving towards even more discoveries. I mean, I went to attend a talk by Professor Dame Jocelyn Bell, yes. And she said in her talk that she is so confident that the next Einstein and the next groundbreaking thing in science and in astronomy will come from Africa, because Africa is really investing in this. And it's even more that we see this, these in the capacity. What I mean by capacity is we see in the intake of the people that are coming into astronomy now. South Africa has a great program called the NASP, so the National Astronomy and Space Science Program, where it's taking students, and I have to be honest with you that it's really great to see people of color and like a whole diversity of people coming into this program to do astronomy. And it is through this program, and because of this program, that today we have the first Zambian astronomer coming from South Africa, the first Burkina Faso astronomer, female astronomer coming from South Africa, the first Zambian astronomer coming from South Africa, and many more. And there are many others that I'm not mentioning, but you can see these are the contributions that as a country, as South Africa, we are contributing towards the whole of Africa, but also Africa is contributing to the rest of the world. It's having informative conversations about science, awareness, and bringing closer to people what is it that we are doing and how important is it to you and to communities. Science communication is important. Number one, we see right now in our country, it's important to make sure that we eradicate false information about things. Eradicate skepticism of science. It's important that we have, open-mindedness in people and in generations. So people know how things also affect them. I mean, it is through communicating in science and speaking science sometimes to people that they know how important things are to them. I can go on right now with politics to say that we've seen during COVID how in South Africa, instead of, in most cases, instead of the government using scientists to talk about things, it used people that do not know anything about science, and that created a lot of skepticism around issues that were really important. So it's important to have people who have first-hand experience of things to speak about these things in a way that they ensure that the other people are able to understand the conversation, to understand what's going on and take the conversation further. So talking science and communicating science is important. And I know that, you know, the earlier communication, like earlier science communication was done through newspapers. You know, that's how I got into astronomy as well. And that's how I even continued to get hooked, because of how science was communicated, even in the newspapers. You know, I collected like pictures of, you know, when the salt was being built, pictures of the Large Hadron Collider. That's how science was communicated to me. But today we are, you know, we are more at a level where we are able to talk science in spaces like Instagram, in spaces like Facebook, you know, a space beyond just the newspaper. And I think we should be doing more of that, you know, bring awareness, like, you know, bring awareness, saying, be aware that this is happening and this is why this is happening. This is why this is important. This is because, you know, we need to be able to communicate this with proper reasons to our people, sort of like pleading with them, say, hey, come and embrace the science with me, you know, come, hey, look at this. You know, it's really great to have people being part of this heritage. I could say science communication is more about awareness, just like outreach. You know, when you're doing outreach, you are kind of showcasing what's there, showcasing what we have in this system. You know, I mean, an outreach program in astronomy would look like taking out telescopes, you know, and having people look over through the telescope, looking at stars, get them fascinated, get them excited about the stars. And, you know, that's part of astronomy communication and outreach. But science education is a level below there, like a fundamental level where we're trying to understand, like understanding the core fundamentals of the sciences. So what, or rather, how do things work the way they do? Why do things work the way they do? You know, and that's more of education, because you try to understand the fundamentals of what's happening within systems. You're not just showcasing and showing things for, you know, for just getting people excited, but you want to get people to understand conceptually as well what is happening in those systems. And that is science education. You know, education is beyond outreach. And, you know, I say outreach is a door to education. You know, I think right now we are really moving towards that. I'm happy with all the strides that we are making. Super scientists is doing great stuff of profiling scientists as superheroes so that kids can see themselves in those images. And that's just amazing. The second thing is, you know, social media has done a powerful job at increasing awareness. And I'm going to make an example that I met Ntiki and Sia Digital via social media. And that shows how powerful social media is in terms of this. You know, outreach projects that are being done so far, you know, we need to document them better and continue with the conversation. And I think that media houses also need to do better in getting scientists to speak science. I mean, there's a show on Expresso, and Expresso is also trying to bring that into their work. So I think a lot of work is starting to go into communicating science. There are podcasts around. There's another podcast by N with an E, who profiles African scientists and, you know, speaks to them about their journey. And I think that's an important part of communicating science and us speaking about our science. And yeah, I think so far we're doing great in that, but we can always do more, and more is always needed. And I think this platform is also kind of a step ahead, and it's just around there where it's really helping and motivating so many other young kids out there. Yeah. Okay. So in closing, I'll say a little bit more about myself, because I realized I didn't say much about who I am and where I am right now. So I am currently finishing off my PhD at the University of Cape Town. and I'm doing my PhD in the Department of Astronomy, and I'm focusing in Astronomy Education Research. So I'm an Astronomy Education Researcher, and currently I am a research scientist at the Max Planck Institute of Astrophysics in Germany. And I'm working together with the IAU, so that's the International Astronomy Union, OAE, Office of Astronomy for Education, where I'm there as a researcher. So that's where I'm currently at. I am from Soweto, as you can see. So I'm from Soweto. I'm a child from Soweto, born and raised there, went to schools in Soweto. And today I am a researcher at Max Planck Institute of Astronomy, and this is just part of life where we are saying that, you know, dreams come true. I never knew that I'd get to where I am, but I worked towards it. And I think if I had seen a lot more people like me doing science, I would have been even more encouraged to continue doing science. And yeah, and I'm really glad that with spaces like this today, we are able to see and we are able to encourage each and everyone to allow their kids to dream, for kids to allow themselves to dream, and for people to see that it is possible for us to go for things that didn't look necessarily that they are for us. And so I just like to say in closing that continue believing that you are the dream that you want to be. So we are it. And I always say this, the dream is us. We need to continue dreaming, and we need to continue talking and speaking science so that we open more doors for more people to dream. And I thank you so much.